Hello, everybody. Yes, we are live. It just took just a little bit to go, and I'm not going to do the little 30-second timer here. I'm just going to be here now with everybody. And who is this guy? You may be questioning, or maybe not, but my name is Bart Sharp, and you are on Becoming Quantum Conscious at United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 103.5, broadcasting out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana. And what that means is that we have a radio show coming out, or two radio stations coming out of New Orleans, but also we have the UPRN Talk Radio website, and that'd be uprntalkradio.com. But also we're on Roku, and also Facebook, YouTube, and other network platforms all around the world. And wonder if New Orleans is sunny today or cold, because the person I'm talking to today, Maiaya Vale, is in Florida, and she says it's cold. I'm in Austin, Texas, and it is warm. New Orleans is in the middle. We'll have to figure that out with the radio station. Welcome to the show, Maya.
Thank you for having me, Bart, once again.
It is my pleasure. And yeah, usually when you have astrology type of shows, you're always looking into the future. However, I think it's really, what I did in preparation for this show was look at all the predictions of 2025 and think about, well, what can we learn from these things? What actually happened? And what is the wisdom coming out of that? So we're going to do this show today with reviewing 2025 and then going into 2026. Maiaya Vale is an astrologer out of Florida, but thanks to the internet, she is everywhere available for readings. And also you can become a part of her mail outs, what she does forecasting by addressing astrology with Maiaya.com, and that'd be MAIA, astrology with Maiaya. And so glad you're here today.
Thank you for having me, Bart. I love what you're doing in terms of a recap of the year of astrology of 2025 before we head into the new year, really reassessing a lot of the shifts that we went through, and a lot of different cycles are occurring.
Uh-huh. They are. I just think it's interesting to bring it up, and we want to say hi to Heidi Gold, who's just checking in with us. Hi, Heidi. And there we go. Yeah, so what are some of the bigger challenges you saw happening? Like when you start to look at the charts and all of these things of where the planets are going to be aligned with the zodiac signs, you have to go, well, that one's going to be interesting. That one might be a little bit hard on a lot of people. I don't want to say scary, because I don't like to use the word scary with astrology. I think it's more of like, be aware of all of what it has to offer.
Mm.
Yeah. So when you started 2025 and you look at the year ahead, what were some of the things that you thought, this is interesting?
Well, I knew it was going to be a big year, and I've been studying astrology for a while. I have teachers that have been studying it for 40 plus years. And of course, a lot of the big ones that are out there, I'm sure most of your platform is aware of basic astrology, was the heavy hitters, the generational planets, which was Uranus, We just experienced Pluto back in 2024 in November in Aquarius. So that was our first year really with Pluto fully stationed in Aquarius. So that was bringing a lot of changes in the Aquarius part of one's natal chart. So the chart is like a circle with slices of a pie, and each equal slice represents an area of life. So first house could be home, second house could be money, third house community, fourth house home and family, 10th house career. So wherever Aquarius falls at in someone's chart would be the area where they would be having these Plutonian archetype themes like the classic death and rebirth, transformation. Um, so we were all kind of going through that collectively. Um, we noticed that a lot with AI and technology.
Really? I hadn't really put the AI quotient, but I guess AI would be kind of an Aquarian type of concept because it
Technology.
is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So much. When I think of Aquarian, I always think of invention, going forward into new realms, creativity. When you think of Pluto, it's kind of whatever's repressed. Is
Mm,
how I see it, and that's a big conflict there. That's a big opportunity to let go of some big repressed stuff.
yes. So that was a big one with Pluto this year that we were all feeling into. And then the main themes were for us to look at in terms of our reflection process this year would be this summer. The summer, Uranus, the planet of eccentricity, creative breakthroughs, also breakdowns, moved into a whole new sign. It did retrograde back this fall, and it will station direct. Let's see, Uranus, um, November 7th, it's stationed direct into Gemini. So this is going to be your Uranus usually is about a 7-year cycle in a specific sign. So this is a whole new 7-year cycle in the Gemini part of our natal chart. But we will see these eccentricity creative breakdowns and breakthroughs on a collective level in terms of the Gemini archetype of which has a lot to do with social media as well and news and information.
Wow. So the Gemini archetype would be a lot about communication.
Yes. And then again, in on a personal level in someone's natal chart, the Gemini part of their house is going to be going through that kind of freedom seeking, rebellion, creative breakthroughs as well, depending on what house it falls in. And that will be a whole new 7-year cycle for each of us.
Wow. Communication has changed so much thanks to the internet. We're communicating all over the world, and yet a lot of people complain it's not as authentic. It's not heart to heart. It's not this vibrational exchange. Uh, and what are your thoughts about that? Because I kind of think that it's evolving, that we are having heart to heart over the internet, over texting, over these other vehicles we're using. It seems to
Yeah,
be,
I
I
agree
mean,
with that.
yeah, yeah. When I was doing shamanistic work 15 years ago, the talk was, oh, well, you just can't feel the energy over the internet.
Mm.
And we were like, well, yeah, I'm starting to see that too. But then within time, that just didn't seem to be a concept. People just got it. It started happening. Um, what's your thoughts? I mean, you're younger than me. You've grown up with the internet probably most of your life.
Yeah, I feel that people's relationship to the internet is changing. And of course, it's been changing at a rapid speed. And I love what you mentioned about it being heart to heart. I think there will be a lot of more creative breakthroughs when it comes to that. There's also possibly a lot more creative job markets out there with
Hmm.
Uranus as well. Things when my parents were younger that, that job market wasn't even there. We're going to see
Yeah.
more of that, especially with Pluto and Aquarius bringing in this um, whole new world, a whole new era. And then Neptune this summer as well dipped into Aries. It did retrograde back and will station there January 26th. But that's a
Mm.
14-year cycle, a whole new 14-year cycle. So we really got a taste tester this summer of some of these news cycles. And so if you can feel into some of the changes that were happening for you this summer, it's going to be a major theme going into 26. And I think the retrogrades that occurred this fall when they dipped right back into their signs, Neptune back into Pisces, Uranus back into Taurus, it was really helping us tie up some loose ends before moving into these new cycles.
Yeah, it just kind of gets my head spinning with some of this stuff with, AI and Gemini. Is there components because most, a lot of people really say, well, AI is heartless. Well, yeah, it doesn't have a heart, it's technology, but it will have no caring, or we will be the effect of it. Uh, but if it goes into Gemini, that's going to create more communication. Maybe we start to see emotional aspects with it. Am I getting that right?
It's possible, with astrology and the archetypes, we can play with themes like that. Um, I think the big thing, no matter what, you can use technology in a positive way or a negative way, and making sure like people like you
Mm-hmm.
and people that you and I are connected with and the using these platforms are using it for a positive level for moving society and humanity forward on a positive level with our hearts intact, with the mind, the heart union. We were talking before, Bart, before we started about how, astrology can be very heady and logical and analytical, and it's really important to take time if you need to take time away from it and really integrate how you're feeling with it too. And I, in my practice, like sitting with the transits and feeling into the energies of the planetary alignments rather than just studying it in an analytical way as well.
Yeah.
So with Uranus and Gemini and Pluto Aquarius, we're going to see these advancements. And I think as you mentioned, it's really important for us to use these things on a positive level, whatever amazing new innovations come out, and stay connected with our heart and our humanity as well.
So, how does that work for you? Because you've mentioned this to me since we've been talking. I'm listening to astrology with my heart, almost like that's a little bit in the foreground instead of the background. How does
So,
it?
how I like to explain it for myself is you go on a lot of sacred sites, right, Bart?
Yes.
And I love seeing your posts. They're very beautiful. And as you mentioned, we can feel the energy through the screen sometimes, through technology. And for me, astrology is like a living oracle. It feels like a living, breathing divinity tool that we use. And so, similar to tarot, you want to have your own living relationship with it first before diving into some of the mercurial aspects of it. It's for me, it's like standing on a beautiful mountain and you're just awe-inspired and you almost are speechless and have no words. I think when we really use astrology as a tool for soulful inner dialogue. And we respect it and take it as a time to really sit with ourselves and let it have that awe-inspiring feeling.
Mhm.
We can move more with the heart and integrate the heady aspects of it. And of course, that can correlate to the technology going forward as well, with a lot of the innovations we'll be seeing on that level, but also, a governmental and political level around the world as well.
Mm. So when you work with a client, you may not even be talking to them live. You're getting your charts together. And does something just kind of come through of a knowing of like, oh, this seems to be more what this person is in relation to this chart, and another person that would have the same birthday, time, and place, it might be totally different.
It's very different because in everyone's chart, people have different placements. You know, um, I study more than just sun sign astrology. It's an ancient esoteric art that's dated back to the School of Alexandria. Plato studied it. And so, yes, it's very different in terms of the chart. And my teacher, who I've studied under a few teachers, but my current teacher, Adam Ellenboss, he's actually writing a book about it now, having a divinatory relationship with astrology. Because and then most people who do work with astrology are very intuitive, and in a way, if it is a living oracle, it is an intuitive art as well. And there's definitely aspects that jump out at me that spirit leads me to, and I personally like to sit with the chart for a few days because things come to me to share with my.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. You kind of like you open it up and it starts to percolate in your body with all of this. I'm sure you've been an astrologer more than one lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really, as you bring this stuff up, this Pluto in Aquarius. I mean, here you have this huge inventive side, but yet, Pluto is about the repressed parts. But when I always look at Pluto, I think of these deep places in my gut
Mm.
that hold, my most repressed emotions and maybe going beyond through generations in my family, the deep, deep anger that my family line has held. And yet, there's this new inventiveness coming on with Pluto, and uh, it sounds kind of exciting that
It
maybe
is
that stuff
exciting.
will move.
When these outer planets move into new signs and start new cycles, they really give us the umph to break old generational curses, break old timelines, and move forward. And when we study astrology or the cycles and we kind of know what's coming, we can say, okay, this is a great time. A lot of people are going to feel it anyway, whether they study astrology or not. They're going to feel the energy if you have any sort of intuitive awareness. But knowing that really can be inspiring, as you said, that you feel those in your life as well.
Amen. They just come up, and it feels like there's a lot of confrontation with that Pluto energy as I watch society right now. Uh, some are moving out of it, and there's great invention, and some are going in the opposite direction.
Mm.
Uh, you know, astrology. I don't want to play. It's hard. I just say that this point and see what you think. Do people have success and failure in relation to their astrological charts? In other words, you have all of these possibilities. Do you capitalize on them? And really take that to a bigger question of like, well, is society really optimizing what is being offered to them by the planetary alignments. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
Yeah, so on an individual level, in our natal chart, specifically individually, and I'll get to the collective as well, but we have different aspects playing out. You can have Mars and Saturn squaring each other within a few degrees. That creates more of a challenge, or opposing each other in the chart. On opposite spectrums, creating an opposition, um, it can be challenging. Now, if they are sextiling and a harmonious degrees flowing, or a trine, that brings more the positive archetype out in someone's natal
Hmm.
chart, and therefore in their personality and their character and their archetypal role in their life. So when we have challenging aspects in our natal chart, it's really important to expound upon the positive ones. So, like right now we have Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. I'm a Cancer rising, for example. That's my first house,
Hmm.
and I really focus on rising signs over sun signs because but your whole chart is oriented around. And so, with Jupiter in Cancer being exalted, it can express itself more abundantly. It's the planet of blessings, of luck, of growth, of optimism. Jupiter does its Jupiter return in your natal chart every 12 years. And so focusing, oh, I have Jupiter in my first house this year, so this means that I'm going to have a lot more cushion, a lot more blessings and luck when it comes to my identity, so I can expound upon that. Jupiter is also like a guardian angel in whatever area of life and house that it's traversing through in your natal chart. So knowing that you can focus and put a lot of energy towards that, that doesn't mean that we negate the difficult or harsh aspects in our chart. It just kind of balances and weighs some things out. On a collective level, this is why studying some of the cycles can be helpful. And I really do believe a lot of the higher ups use astrology for whatever they want to play out in terms of the world or their agendas. Um, but knowing it, we can work with the higher octave of some of the things that are happening to help mitigate the challenging aspects that are, happening collectively.
And we have, I had to get really close here, saying Cooled Consulting. I sure I'm messing that one up. Quiddy Consulting. Such a great dialogue. As a real novice in these areas, the conversation was thoughtful and moving beyond the technological aspects of astrology. Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not a technical person, and I appreciate good astrologers and just catching up with people. Heidi's sun, crabby Cancer, rising Virgo moon. If you do have a question for Maiaya, please put it on the chat, and hopefully we can get to it. Uh, it's true. I mean, there's always the famous story about Nancy Reagan, wife of Ronald Reagan, would just kind of dictate his schedule over astrological signs. And of course, uh, people in the Republican Party thought he was crazy. Like, how could you use astrology over something so important as government? But there it is.
He was
It's
actually very
all,
smart.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of ways to do it, which really brings me to a curiosity about Mars. That it's been is it still in retrograde? I mean, I know it went into
Not
retrograde.
currently, not currently, but we did have a Mars retrograde last year in springtime, and that could have been a rough one for some people.
Yeah, yeah. I thought the masculine that Mars presents wasn't so divine for a lot of people.
Yeah. That was rough. And when Mars is retrograde, it's important to be mindful. It can bring up heat or rashes. This is like individually, there could be some accidents, or like, burning or cutting something. So when a planet is retrograde, whatever attributes that are associated with that planet, we just want to take precaution and be extra
Yeah.
mindful of. And of course, that Martian energy gets, you can apply it on a collective level too when it comes to wars and things that we've been experiencing, and you know, like that as well.
Yeah, I hadn't really placed it with a lot of the wars going on, but I mean, it's kind of like, duh.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
all,
Mars is that warrior-like energy, action and drive. And when Mars is retrograde, it's not a great time to take action on things. It's a good time to reassess actions that you've already taken and things like that.
hmm. So when you look at 2025, what were some of the times that you thought, this is exciting? I'm so glad this is here.
Definitely this summer with those major outer planets like dipping their toes into new signs. It was, for me personally, such refreshing energy, um, to really get creative and think about what to start anew, and things that were old cycles ending out and new cycles ending. We don't always want to go back and tie up loose ends, but when they retrograded out in October, tying up those loose ends, and that's what I'm most excited about going into 2026, is that they're going to be station direct and we can really close out some old chapters and feel like, it's like in the movie The Wizard of Oz, for those of you who've seen it, when she says, I'm not in Kansas anymore. It's kind of that feeling, especially because we have three outer planets moving into new cycles. So we're kind of all going through this together, and anyone with any kind of intuitive awareness is going to feel
Yeah, what a nice vision of like, I'm not in Kansas anymore. Oh, I'm in this mystical reality where scarecrows talk and tin men walk and
that.
lions are also actually nice. And I'm walking on a golden road. I
Yeah.
mean, what's wrong with that reality? Hi, Heidi. We've been wondering about moving into 2026 and Pluto's energies. I've heard of another astrologer mention something significant with all of that in my birth chart. Pluto was in Virgo and in my third house. Uh,
Pluto's in your third house.
yeah, but also wondering about moving into 2026 and Pluto's energies.
So that's interesting for her, because speaking of a review of this year, we had the eclipses happening in Pisces and Virgo. So a lot of people who had Pisces placements or Virgo placements, especially if you have planets in those, more than just your sun, moon, and rising sign, you could have Mars, Mercury, etc. But especially those main three, we're really moving through some shifts. We had the eclipses happening in March in Pisces and Virgo. We had a slight closing out of a chapter with the Aries eclipse last spring, and then in September we had the eclipses in Pisces and Virgo as well, which they're on an axis of each other. So really, they represent Pisces, the collective, and spirituality, mysticism, and being selfless and compassionate, and health, spiritual health. And then Virgo represents our physical health and daily routines, small animals, and our diet and exercise as well, and extended family too. So a lot of those changes could have been going on for people. And of course, we saw some health things on a collective level in terms of health and
Mhm.
whatnot.
Wow, thanks. Thanks. And we're right at the midpoint of the show, and I wanted to tell everybody that we are with Maiaya Vale, and where the theme of today is an astrological review of 2025 and looking into the future of 2026. That'll be coming up. But also, my name is Bart Sharp, and you are on Becoming Quantum Conscious. And this is United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 107.7 and 103.5 out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, where we're broadcasting. And so to get in touch with Maiaya, you just go to astrological, nope, excuse me, astrology with Maya. And that would be MAIA, astrologywithmaya.com, to schedule a reading or be a part of her newsletter and get her predictions. Also, anything happening in your world that you would like to share or promote, talk about before we go to the second half of the show?
Oh, I'm always open for astrological readings. And this is a great time of year to do it. There's a lot of cycles changing. So if anyone's interested in any of the cycles that are going to be happening in their life on a personal level, feel free to reach out to me.
There you have it. So I think it's a really good idea to get a reading for the year just to see how everything's, the possibilities and opportunities that are there for you. I always like to look at it that way. It's like, where can we grow?
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a challenging time. We're always looking at, and this is, God, so many conversations on Facebook are all about this. The new Aquarian age is coming in. I can't wait. And, we see it stage after stage after stage with Pluto going into Aquarius. That was like, it feels like there's revelations happening right now. And yet we still have a long ways to go to where, like, full on Aquarius. And any ideas about what people need to kind of tune into to be more into that Aquarian energy? I think this is a very desirable time. At least I think so. I'm kind of excited to be about being in the Aquarian age. Any advice to people to help them integrate, move up?
That was beautifully said, Bart. Yes, that's a really beautiful reflection. And like you mentioned, it can be a very exciting time. And it can, for some people, be a very nostalgic time because old chapters are closing out. An old world is closing out. And so for some, that can feel nostalgic. Um, there could be grieving associated with that. And so sitting with those feelings is really important. Um, and with Aquarius, it's really important with Pluto and Aquarius and the transformation. It's really important to embrace mutable energy and eccentric, being true to yourself, having integrity and authenticity, and really diving into the deeper parts of yourself to have greater authenticity and alignment with your life and with your purpose. And if you need help with your purpose, you can, of course, reach out to me and we can do a reading and look into that. And astrology is great because it gives us these parameters to work within, so everything doesn't feel so elusive. But also, we are moving into water signs this year. We're having Mercury retrograde in 2026 in the water signs. And we did have Jupiter in Cancer in a water sign, which really could have, expanded emotions for some people on a collective level or individual.
Mm-hmm.
And when Mercury goes retrograde in the water signs this year, it's really a time to reevaluate our emotions and our internal life, and how, with Pluto moving into Aquarius and this new world changing in front of our eyes, is really sitting with how we can create inner security and inner safety in ourselves while the whole outside world is changing around us. What can we control internally?
Yeah, it really brings up a curiosity because so many people are into water consciousness right now. Because water is very mutable, it changes, it can it can bring in change in very dynamic ways. At least that's the water that we have. It's very mutable. How is there any similarity when we talk about a water sign and this? I mean, sounds like Mercury in a water sign is an opportunity for some real intenseness.
Mm. Yeah, well, the water signs can go very deep. And, think about being very deep underneath the ocean and how there's many different layers and feelings within and different hues within the ocean. And so the water element is associated with our subconscious. So really digging into, of course, old programmings that no longer serve us. And, it's trendy in terms of the spiritual world and new age communities, for us to almost constantly be on a healing journey and constantly, releasing what no longer serves us. But beyond just those words and those phrases, being able to sit with ourselves, having a practice, a meditation, whatever it is for you, to be able to sit with your subconscious and have a living connection with it as much as you can really help with the water retrogrades this year. And we did have some Mercury retrograde last year in fire signs, and I really think that's prepping us for the year ahead. In terms of the Chinese New Year with the fire horse.
Hmm.
And with Neptune going into Aries, Saturn stationing there, Neptune and Aries are going to conjunct February 20th. Um, in a conjunction in Aries. So I think we were reworking a lot of things this year with Mercury retrograde and fire to prep us for going into 2026, that fire horse year. And now we're going to be sitting with a lot of emotions because when we have that fire energy and we're, being pioneering and freedom seeking and independent going forward, it's important for us to reassess our emotions and our internal world feelings to make sure that we're not being over.
Okay, you're getting very blippy. I think your internet connection is having a problem there. Um, so the last 1 minute just kind of let's 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 see if you're better. Did you say something, Maya? Are you here? Can you hear me? I think we're having an internet blip, and hopefully Maya will be able to return just right when we're getting into some really hot stuff. This is sad. Uh, I'll just go on with some of the things that I got from this was that when we have a Mercury retrograde, it's a water sign. Water goes very deep and it moves very quick. And therefore, you can go into deep places and and come through that very quickly. But one of the things that anytime you're going into deep places and maybe you go into a lull in life, it's natural to have these places. And it's a great time to reflect and to know who you are. Because in these low times, it's an opportunity to plant seeds, to get an identification who you are. And what you want to not do is avoid it. Because if you avoid it, you don't get the opportunity to rise up. Whenever you go low, 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 you're always going to go high, high, high if you do not avoid the low times. Okay, I was just finishing a thought. Are you back, Amaya?
I'm back. Sounded beautiful. Beautiful thought.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Mercury retrograde is, if there's anything that people bring up quicker in the subject of astrology, is always Mercury retrograde.
Mm.
And it's just funny that way. Uh, so when we think about 2026, what do you think of some of the possibilities showing up for this coming year?
Well, we're closing out some of those Pisces Virgo eclipses. And that's service to self, being of service in our individual life and also being of service on a collective level. And then this summer, the nodes are going to be shifting into new signs, Aquarius and Leo. And that's going to be a whole new 18-month cycle of eclipses in Aries and Leo. So a lot of the Aries and Leo placements, or if you have planets in those signs, are going to be affected by those eclipses. And the Aries Leo axis is kind of the axis of creativity and self-expression, creativity for ourselves and on a collective level. And it's also the axis of love as well. So those are going to be some major themes, moving into the summer. We have Jupiter in Cancer for a little bit longer. So any Cancerian sun signs or rising signs out there, um, really expound upon that Jupiter energy because it's exalted. We can all expound upon it because Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, until it moves onward this summer into a new sign. So, how are you feeling, Bart? Because you mentioned to me you're an Aries rising.
Um, I'm always looking for new adventures, and and also, it's okay to be in low spots in my life, as I was just talking about. Right now, I've been very quiet, living at home, actually for the first time in quite a while by myself, and just enjoying what it is like to be so quiet all the time. I know something's percolating, and sometimes you don't even know what that is, but you can just feel it in your gut, which is kind of exciting. And that's what I love about anticipating with astrology is you can start to see possibilities coming around the horizon
Mm-hmm.
and how to get prepared for them. Which brings me to a question. Eclipses can be very dynamic in what they offer and change as we see them coming up. How do you prepare for such a thing if there's a way to prepare?
Well, eclipses, when they happen, you can really feel them 3 months before and 3 months after the major events occur. And usually, twice a year they occur back to back with each other. And it's a time where you look back, even if you didn't study astrology, there's like a major thing that happened to you that year. You can look back, and typically it's probably around the eclipses and the eclipses themes, the archetypal themes for
Hmm.
your life. So, really preparing helps to know what sign and what house placement these eclipses are falling for someone individually in their natal chart, if they follow astrology, if you have any personal planets in those signs or aspecting the eclipse energy. But also, and everyone does things differently. I personally take it as a time where I go inwards. I really don't like to be around a lot of people because the energy is already magnified. So it's a great time. A lot of the ancients that studied astrology really took time to sit with it as a sacred time. And I think when you sit in it as a sacred time, now you can't sit 3 months, unless you're on in an ashram somewhere. But if you do take intentional time to sit with what's moving through you in life and what is occurring and changing is important. Now, when we look in the nodes in a natal chart, um, it's the north node. They kind of look like horseshoes, or
Hmm.
I say horseshoes or headphones, whichever. The modern approach is headphones, I guess. I love the horseshoes. They're the horseshoe glyphs in the natal chart. And when we have eclipses occurring, if you look at the north node, it's like the sun or the moon will be right next to that glyph during an eclipse. And the north node is where there's an intense drive and focus. And when we look at the south node directly across from the north node, that's where we need to release. And so, if you dive a little bit deeper into your natal chart around eclipse times, we can actually look at the south node of what we need to release. Because sometimes during eclipses, if life is changing and ushering you into a different way of being, depending on what's happening in your environment around you. Some people like to cling on to that and not move with the change. If you look to the
Yeah.
south node, you can say, okay, this is what life wants me to release or not focus as much on right now. And wherever the north node, the eclipse is happening with the north node, that's really what you're meant to be focusing on and working towards. And that can be really helpful.
Yeah, it just really brings up the question is like, what is important to people? And, what are the highlights of their life? When I look at my father, his baseball schedule was very, very important to him, and his fishing schedule. That was how he developed a lot of self-esteem. He liked his work, but man, that was a lot of his identity. And I just bring that up as a story. It's like, well, what gets you excited, folks? What is it that is the path that makes you get more energy in your body when you go do it? And you can start looking at these eclipse cycles and start looking at the astrology to help you guide to that, but also maybe there's more stuff out there for you. I think success is a wonderful teacher because it gets us to move on to what's next. And astrology seems to be a good helper to advancing that. Just food for thought out there for everybody. So, are there other places in 2026 that you think should be good to look forward to?
We do have a really important alignment in August around the eclipses that are going to be happening in August. So those are going to be creating some major shifts and changes for people as well. Um, I love the general readings in astrology, but I really thrive in terms of looking at individual natal charts because you don't have to be so broad. You can really dig in and pinpoint and if you want, get deeply personal. So that's really what I like to dig into. A lot of astrologers do really great with some of the collective work that's going on out there. And what I can share going forward in terms of this new year, depending on how much certain people that follow your platform know of astrology, is to really look at your chart ruler. So you everyone has a chart ruler in their astrology. So your rising sign, so for instance, you, Bart, you're an Aries rising, so your chart ruler would be Mars. So it's interesting that you brought up how fascinating, the Mars retrograde, because Mars is your chart ruler. So whatever your chart ruler is, you're going to be more affected by that planet's, cycles, phases, aspects, retrogrades. And so that can help you on an individual level going forward into 2026. Like I am a Cancer rising. Cancer is ruled by the moon. So I'm affected by the
Mm.
moon's phases. Um, and the ebbs and the flows, but a lot of the lunar eclipses and the eclipses in general. If you're a Leo rising, you're most affected by those solar eclipses and aspects to the suns um, throughout the year as well. So
And
that's
that's
a big
just in
one.
general. Generally speaking, you're talking about, not for just 2026.
It's generally speaking, but
Okay,
also for 2026. If you look
all right.
at the rise, like if someone is a Gemini rising sign, they're ruled by Mercury, they're going to be even more affected by those retrogrades happening in the water signs.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm such a big initiator, and at the same time, everything in my human design says that I need to be invited to go initiate something. But once I'm invited, and I love doing it, I'm full on. But somebody has to invite me. It's kind of
Yeah,
funny.
the invitation, waiting for the invitation.
Yeah, it's funny how all of that works, you know. And one thing you haven't mentioned the entire show is like what's going on with Scorpio, the sign that people love and some people fear the most. Any Any word on Scorpio?
Yeah, Scorpio. I remember you asked this last year too.
Really?
You're like always fascinated by Scorpio. I do have my Mars, Pluto, and Venus in Scorpio. So we are going to be having a retrograde in I believe it's, let's see if I have it here. I believe it's a Mercury retrograde in Scorpio and Libra going into 2026.
Mm.
And I think that's going to be a really deep one, naturally, because Scorpio can rule, um, hidden truths, also our, deep fears as well, the shadow sides of ourselves or of other people. And Libra is a very personal because it has to do with our personal relationships, marriages. It could be business relationships, contracts, negotiations, collaborations and legal documents. So those retrogrades are kind of really going to be asking us to reevaluate some of those scorpionic themes and those
Mm.
Libran themes this year as well. And,
Wow.
with Mercury retrograde in some of the water signs too, it can feel like when they're retrograde that like walking through water or walking through like, icy snow or something like that. It can feel a little bit, like a horse kind of like, in the water.
And it seems to be like a big creative element at that, because whenever you talk about Scorpios, they're intensely creative and capable and smart, and yet they go so deep with the emotions.
Hmm.
So maybe in that water, you're really coming up with some great stuff and ideas and progressions if you can get through some of the other stuff. Would you say that it's almost like when you have a challenge like that, there's always a choice to make when you're challenged with something like that?
Hmm.
I mean, we may have those things that really look scary, but there's always an opportunity.
Yeah, I think I just want to correct myself. It's Venus retrograde in Scorpio and Libra this year. So with Venus,
Ooh.
Venus has to do with love, relationships, beauty, money, what we find valuable, our personal possessions, and harmony in our life. So when it goes retrograde in a deep sign such as Scorpio, and you talked about decisions and making, we could be reevaluating or, almost being ushered to make a hard decision or a decision we might be scared about or have had, fears about before. But with specifically a Venus retrograde and in Libra, Venus rules
Mm-hmm.
Libra, and then a Venus retrograde in Scorpio as well. It can really be asking us to redo some things so we can have greater Venusian harmony in our life going
Mm.
forward this year.
Wow, that's wonderful. What's the dates on this particular
Venus
event?
retrograde. I believe it's the spring,
Okay.
but they go retrograde and direct a few times.
All right. All
Um,
right.
but we also have Jupiter in Cancer just for a few months
All
and
right.
into the summer. And I just wanted to share there with a little bit of that water too. Is you know, really we could be dealing with some of those emotions, tending to our own emotional wounds. Um, Maybe, Cancer's the divine mother as well, Bart. And so, on a collective level, really working through, the mother archetype, the feminine archetype, our relationship with, women as well, mothers, sisters, women in our
Mm.
life, a parental figure that felt, deeply feminine, and again creating that deeper security, because when we have that relationship with the divine mother and of creation, we do have a very rooted deeper sense of security and safety on an internal soulful level.
That's wonderful. And we're coming to the end of the show. Our guest has been Maiaya Vale, and you can find her at Astrology with Maya, MAIA.com. Thank you for being so much on the show here. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me, Bart.
Yes, and we're at the very end of the second, so I just have to say goodbye to everybody, and we'll see you next week.